the number of factors that are impacting on the spread. And how do you know that you're decreasing the number of factors? You know from the reproductive number, which the R number, which everyone talks about, which is the number of people that get infected if one person gets infected quickly. As of now, myself and other colleagues, our estimate of Ghana's R number is it's greater than 2.5.
So greater than the world average, or the world R naught.
No, the world R naught now is being quoted around 3. I mean, there are even some studies that are coming out which are quoting it around 3.4.
Right.
The problem with an R naught calculation is that it tends to change depending on the interventions you make. And that is why I started from talking about the factors you can change the factors. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by you can change the factors. So if you look at a typical, a typical infection like COVID, you are looking at a number of things that can intervene. So there should be an availability of what we call a virulent pathogen, which is the virus. Then there should be an ability of human beings to interact. And that is why social distancing is key. You cannot change the fact that the virus is already in Ghana. That you cannot change. But you can impact on the social architecture where we tend to like to aggregate. You can do that. The other thing is, the final thing that is key is the size of the population available to be infected. Currently, we have about 2,719 infections. In a population that is 30 million, there's a huge scope of people to get infected. Our R value is greater than 2.5. Our doubling time is less than a week. Under those circumstances, I mean, put it in context. Between the 1st and the 2nd of May, we added 550 new confirmed positive cases. It took us 33 days to go from our first 2 cases to 566. If it took you over just under 5 weeks to get 566 cases, and it takes you 24 hours, yes, some would argue that we are testing more. That can be true. But the reality of the matter is it's also true to say that you are getting more positive results because the disease is spreading. Because if the disease wasn't there, before it got into Ghana on 2nd March, even if you did 100,000 tests, you wouldn't get a single positive case because the disease is not there. The fact that you are testing more means you'd identify more, but it also means that the disease is spreading more. And that is why, in my opinion, we are nowhere near our peak.
Right, that's interesting. Now, you mentioned a number of factors that would determine the calculation of the R naught, if you will. So the presence of the pathogen in the environment, as well as the other factors like how many people are available to be infected and so forth. One thing I didn't hear was the number of tests we're doing per day. Would that also have an impact on whether or not we're closer or farther from our peak? How many people we test per day?
Well, yes, I can explain that. I didn't want to go there because I'd explained that on Newsfile, but because you've asked, I'd explain that again. For the first 5 weeks, you realize that our positive test to total test ratio was about 1.5%, which meant if you did any 100 tests, about 1.5 people would test positive, or if you did 1,000, 15 would test positive.
Right.
Then it shifted to 1.85 around last week, which meant that now when you did 1,000 tests, 18 people would test positive, which meant 3 more people were testing positive in any 1,000 people sampled in the country, whether it came from enhanced testing, contact tracing, whatever, 3 more people were testing positive. The last data they released, it was 2.01, which means if you tested 1,000 people, 5 more people were testing positive. If the number of positive tests in 1,000 people is increasing, and it's not by 1 or 2 over a short period of time, when in 5 weeks you had stayed at 1.5, again I ask myself that is also another calculation you can do, because it's another parameter calculation we do. It clearly tells you that you are not near your peak because the disease is spreading. More people per 1,000 are getting infected. And like I said, when you talk in epidemiology, you say you want to flatten a curve. The curve only flattens when your active cases are dropping. Your active cases drop when your recoveries are more than the new people joining, because you don't want to use your mortality as a barometer. So your active cases drop when the number of people who are recovering and are testing negative for the virus are more than the people testing positive. So in epidemiological terms, we normally will say your curve starts flattening when you test more and you get less. That is when you start flattening, because then the people who are already infected start to recover. If you look at our recovery rate, it's about 10.8%. In Africa, it's 33.8%, and globally, it's 32.8%. Again, does that look like data that tells me that you are approaching your peak? And so these are the things that I look at, and I look at all the parameters, and any which way I turn it, it turns on its head and tells me, no, when you have a polynomial curve, so you are speeding exponentially, your doubling rate is decreasing, is less than 7 days. That is instructive. Your positive test to total test ratio is going up. That is instructive. Your R0 is still higher than 2.5. The research says that if you have such a high R0, you need to trace at least 80% of all contacts to bring your R0 to 1. We are nowhere near that as well. So when I look at the data, Kojo, I just struggle with such assertions. And one thing I would say is that if you watch any country, if you watch the United States, Kumo, if you watch the UK, they would always tell what the R was at start, what the R was in the middle, and they use it to track. I have still not heard anybody from officialdom tell us what our nominal R0 was even 10 days into, what our nominal R0 is now, and how it is trending. So on that basis, how do I agree with a simple empirical assertion that we are approaching our peak? All the numbers don't agree, and you've not given me any number for me to actually compare my computations with. So I cannot agree with that assertion.
Now, to clarify, what you're saying is that your definition of being at our peak would be when our daily recoveries are higher than our daily infections.
That's all. Yes. Yes, more people are getting better and less people are getting sick. It will then also mean that there's a less number of people to be infected by the virus. And that is what the whole concept of herd immunity is. The less the size of the population who can be infected by the virus, the slower the virus spreads and the quicker the curve flattens. These are known epidemiological facts. I'm not in the business of teaching people how to suck eggs, but there are certain things that I also cannot accept as the gospel when what I look at and what I see are in abhorrence to it.
Right, we're talking to Kwame Asiedu Sarpong, and we're learning a little bit about his statistical interpretation of where our peak is and whether we're anywhere near it. Doesn't sound like, in his estimation, we are, which is a fascinating thought. But when we come back, we're going to walk through with him some of the other things that we need to be keeping our eye on. How many tests daily are we doing in Ghana? Is it enough? We are being touted as one of the highest testing nations, not only in Africa but in the world. But is it enough? Are we getting data that we can use to make decisions from the interventions that we have in place at the moment? Kwame Asiedu Sarpong joins us with more on that when we come back. Right now, though, it's time for the Joy Business Minute.
Hello, my name is Darryl. Welcome to the Joy Business Minute, brought to you by Consolidated Bank Ghana. We stand with you. Qatar Airways has warned its employees of substantial redundancies as it struggles with a collapse in demand. Its chief executive wrote to the staff warning of job losses. The Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry has begun a process to undertake an impact assessment survey, which will enable the Chamber fashion out support programs for businesses affected by COVID-19. Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries, Chuma Kwabwa, is asking government to ensure that the necessary modalities are set out clearly in the planned stimulus package for businesses affected by COVID-19. He was speaking at the Joy Business Industrialization Roundtable. And First National Bank Ghana has announced the completion of a process to acquire 100% stake in GHL Bank, Ghana's leading provider of mortgage financing, effective yesterday, 5th of May 2020. And that's the Joy Business Minute, brought to you by Consolidated Bank Ghana. We stand with you.
durability, finishing, quality. Choosing sofas and beds for your home, office or hotel couldn't be easier with an exclusive range of sofas and beds in various designs and colors from latex foam. There is so much choice whatever your budget. Latex foam, your partner for life.
Get digi with it. 924#. Get digi with it. 924#. On your mark, ready, set, let's go. CBG Mobile USSD Young Co. Star 924#. Punk of the go. Smartphone no, young phone no. Ever fire money transfer. For 3 hours water bill. For 3 light bill. For credit. Star 924#. You deserve it. Let's go. Get digi with it. Star 924#. Get digi with it. Star 924#.
CBG is empowering you to get digi with CBG Mobile. Simply dial star 924# and get digi with it. CBG, we stand with you.
Coffee in your cup and Joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is always the best on Joy 99.7 FM.
8:03. We've just had the Joy Business Minute brought to you by Consolidated Bank Ghana, CBG. We stand with you. Now, as a bank that values its customers, CBG is empowering us all to stay home and stay safe during this season with their mobile USSD star 924#. Now, from the comfort of your home, you can all transfer funds, buy airtime, pay bills, check account balance, and even more with CBG Mobile USSD star 924#. Now, you can do this anytime and anywhere. All you need is your phone. Just dial star 924# and get digi with it. It's easy and very convenient. Stay home, stay calm, and stay safe. CBG, we stand with you. Okay then, so let's get an important message from our friends at EcoBank. When we come back, even more on the Super Morning Show. Kwame Sapon stands by. We're going to get into these numbers for real, understand what they all mean.
As we continue to fight COVID-19 together, EcoBank offers you several ways to stay home, stay safe, and take control of your finances. Use EcoBank Mobile whenever, wherever, with or without an EcoBank account to send money through SMS and email. Also buy airtime, pay bills, and much more from the comfort of your home. For high-value transactions, use our internet banking services. EcoBank QR code enables you to make cashless digital payments when paying for goods and services. Download the EcoBank Mobile today from the Google Play Store, App Store, or from our Facebook page. Additionally, dial the short code star 770# from any phone and start transacting. EcoBank cares. Remember to observe social distancing, wash your hands frequently, and don't touch your face. For further assistance, kindly call EcoBank Contact Center on 3225 anytime, any day, toll free. Stay home, stay safe. EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Coffee in your cup and Joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is always the best on Joy 99.7 FM.
It's 8:05. Our guest this morning, Kwame Sapon. He's a pharmacist. He's also a fellow at CDD, and he has had his eye firmly on the numbers since Ghana started managing the COVID-19 pandemic. Kwame, thank you so much for staying with us. And you made a very important point in the first part of our conversation where you raised all the factors that would determine whether or not we're at our peak. Now, we talked about testing. Now, I'm wondering, at the moment, because of a certain lack of information, we don't actually know how many tests we're doing per day. But we do know how many tests we've done so far. Would you say that we have enough information there and we are doing enough testing to determine whether or not we are close to our peak?
Well, yes, I'd say that when it comes to testing, you also have to realize that testing is, resource intensive. So the test kits have to be purchased, you have to have a test capacity which is being run by government, you have to have contact tracers, you have to have samplers, you have to have the right samples coming. So it is intensive. But just if you look at the number of tests we've done per head, we are amongst some of the countries that are testing quite aggressively. The question, however, then comes in as to what we are doing when we have tested. And that is what the whole issue around the backlog became a also being received on time, then you have a problem with your statistical computations when it comes to the epidemiology around your R0, your doubling time, your mortality rates, and all that. Because if I, for one, was going to compute anything, I would take the data from the Ghana Health Service website. So if you are not reporting regularly, then it makes your calculations defective because you have to make certain assumptions that what is our lag time, how many tests are we reporting on a daily basis, that sort of thing. So I'm not too worried about the testing itself. I think where we're ramping it up, and every country ramps it up, I am rather worried about what we are doing and how quickly we are reporting.
Right. On Monday, we had a jump of 550 cases, positives. Sorry, added to the numbers on the Ghana Health Service.
So let me stop you there, and that is exactly the point I was making. If you check the Ghana Health Service release, that number was for the 2nd of May. These are the points I'm making. If you check the official release, it was at 2nd of May. But I understand that because it was put on that day, you would say that, and that is why statistically I am pointing these out.
Right.
Because that number is for the 2nd of May.
Right. Kwame, I'll ask you to reposition once again, if you can find that position you were in before the break.
Yeah, is it better now?
Yes, perfect. Now, what you're saying is actually the point I was also driving at, that we were told at the time that those were the results from a backlog, if you will, which points to the 2nd of May date that you're referring to. So I'm kind of wondering, we are getting results that are related to days that are past. How useful is this for people like you who want to be able to calculate, how close we are to the peak?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. So there would be what we call disparities in lag time, because obviously, so you have to make assumptions to make the calculation, and that is why when I was speaking about the R calculation we have done, it is a crude calculation because some of these are not consistent. And that's why I cannot wait for the day like Thursday where we're going to daily reporting, and then I know there's a 24-hour lag, so we are making accurate calculations. And you see, we asked for these things. When at the start, all this hula baloo about the data handling was going on, people didn't appreciate that it was going to come back and bite us, because when we come to have these calculations and the numbers to actually inform, critique what official position is, the whole nation will be handicapped because the state is not telling us what our R is. I can ask you now in a rhetorical way, because you know what Ghana's R is? Has that been officially communicated to you?
Not seen it anywhere.
So as a journalist who wants to interrogate the narrative around this particular pandemic, you are handicapped because if you cannot compare us to, say, the world number, you cannot compare us to the UK number or any number. So it looks like we are running our own league on a racetrack where there are many other competitors. And we cannot do that.
Right. Okay, Kwame, let's keep trying the repositioning experiment. We will find that sweet spot. We'll find it eventually.
Is it better?
I think there's still a bit of cracking in there. See if you can recall where the position you had your phone in just before we took the break. That was perfect. Now,
is it better now?
Oh, yes, that sounds much better. Now, I noticed something, because you're so good with the numbers, I really hope you could help us understand this. I noticed something on the Ghana Health Service website. Now, what they've done is they've broken down all the cases into categories. So they have general surveillance, all the positives that they found through general surveillance. They have the travelers undergoing mandatory quarantine in Accra and Tamale, all the numbers for that, and then the enhanced contact tracing. So, for example, we know that it splits out as follows. General surveillance, we currently have 919 cases through general surveillance. We have 115 cases that are from the travelers undergoing quarantine. We have 1,685 cases from enhanced contact tracing, making the total of 2,719. But here is the thing that is interesting. So all the recoveries so far, 294 of them, all of them are from general surveillance. None of the travelers undergoing mandatory quarantine has recovered. None of the enhanced contact tracing numbers, all 1,685 of them, none of them has recovered so far. When you look at those who are critically ill at the moment or moderately ill, there are 5 of them. All of them are from general surveillance. None of them from travelers undergoing mandatory quarantine. None of them from enhanced contact tracing. When you look at the dead, there are 18 of them. All of them from general surveillance. None of them from travelers undergoing mandatory quarantine. None of them from enhanced contact tracing. Statistically, is that even possible?
I would struggle with that. I think that is, what do you call it, an error on the website, and I would want us to interrogate that. So I wouldn't want to dwell on that too much because, like you rightly said, it is not possible because we know that there have been press conferences where the Minister of Information told us that for those who, the travelers, they were allowed to go home after those who are tested positive had a second negative test. So if that is the case, then some of them have recovered. So I would think that is an error, and without that being corrected, I wouldn't want to dwell on that because that would take us into dwelling in the realm of conjecture, and I'm not someone who really likes to go down that route.
Right, that's
but
fair.
There's something that I want to point out on there as well, which is instructive. Do you realize on that grade that you are quoting from that we get more hits in our surveillance than we get in our contact tracing? If you look at the percentage of positive tests, you'd realize that is 2.98. Have you realized that?
Yeah, that is accurate. Yeah.
Okay. Now let me explain to you. In statistics, we've got something that is called a bias. A bias means that you are sampling knowing that you have a higher probability of getting more positive tests. And what is the bias here? The bias is anyone who is a contact has come into contact with someone who is positive, so should be more likely to test positive than someone walking on the street who is not coming into contact with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
The worry is that we are having a lower hit in that population segment and a higher hit in our general population, meaning the disease is spreading quicker in our general population than in our contact tracing. So that then turns the thing on its head and asks the question, is this not why we have a polynomial but not a binomial test? And these are the deep things that we are looking at and thinking, how can you tell me you're at your peak when your bias sample is getting a lower hit rate than your general population who should not be as much exposed?
So okay, I get the point you're making, that it is more likely for a random Ghanaian to test positive than one who has been traced through the contact tracing.
Thank you very much. That's the data. That is the data. And that should scare all of us. And that is why today I have written that I cannot help but wonder why all this is going on and people are roaming the streets as if business as usual. You are more likely to get it on the street unknowingly than you are if you are contact of a known positive test. That is the evidence.
Wow.
So how people are not even trumping this obvious statistical data and letting people know that the streets are not as safe as we think they are. It just belittles me. It just begs the whole issue.
Now, I know a lot of, commentary has been made around the president's decision to lift the lockdown. But of course, he didn't just lift it. He added certain directives. So now we have to wear masks. In fact, from today, you could be arrested for not wearing a mask. Social distancing protocols remain in place. The borders remain closed. From your perspective, from the interpretation of the numbers, are we better off now with the lockdown lifted, or should authorities start considering the question of lockdown once again?
Kojo, if you go onto the Ghana Health Service website, again, I like dealing with official communication because it's much easier to argue the narrative. You would realize that there are heat maps on there, so we know our hot spots. It is easier for us to cordon off these hot spots and try a mass test. I am glad that the president said that he is not averse to that option of imposing curfews or selectively quarantining of places. It may be our best option. I can understand, and I have argued it with a lot of people, that I never agreed with the core concept of lifting the lockdown. But I could clearly understand the different dynamics that were at play that resulted in the president taking that decision. I was of the view that epidemiology lost in the taking of that decision, and that the economic, security, and social factors that go into the advice that the president probably would have received trumps it. Currently, if that is the case, is it also not true, based on that statistics I pointed out to you, and if you look at the heat maps, where our hotspots are, that the very people who are being protected because if they were locked down, they would starve, are the very people who are now getting infected? Do you see the anomaly in that particular statement? We open up to protect the people who live in dense populated areas because they have to go out on a daily basis for their hustle. Unfortunately, because the streets are not safe and because they are more densely populated, they are disproportionately getting infected. And these are some of the other things that we are not discussing dispassionately, and sometimes the things that I sit and wonder about.
So again, the simple interpretation of what you're saying is that those who benefit from the lifting of the lockdown are now those at the highest risk of infection.
Yes, because the streets are not safe. They are the ones who unfortunately have to go and sell all the other things like chains, go to the markets and all that. And if the 2.98 out of 100 would test positive in those populations, and under 2% would test in the contact tracing, it speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Now, the thing is, a lot of countries are looking to Ghana. Ghana's decision-making, Ghana's timing is touted, commended by many other countries. They think we are exemplary. But here we are, pointing out a number of things that are really not ideal about the choices we've made so far. So who is getting it right if we aren't?
You see, Kojo, I said this on another program of Joy on Saturday. I said, when I look at epidemiology, I don't look at it on the basis of who is getting it right or getting it wrong, or whether government has done enough or done less. I look at it from the point of government has done a lot. Could we have done better? It's like taking your kid to school and your kid coming home with an end-of-year report and saying they were second or third. It is good enough. But could they have been first? It is from that critical point that I look at our performance, and that is why I'm unpicking a lot of the things that I'm pointing out to you, because I deep dive to see the things that ordinarily we wouldn't look at and ask ourselves questions why they are happening. And the government needs that form of critical eye. That is the role of civil society. The Ghana Health Service needs that critical eye. That keeps them on their toes. And the Ghanaian, more importantly, needs that critical eye, because he's walking around as though business as usual, when in fact it's not business as usual, and when in fact he's at higher risk on the streets than if he was actually living next to someone who has the infection, even though that should not be the case. But our data is showing that that is the case. Wow. Unless, of course, Ghana Health Service will turn around and tell us that's an anomaly in reporting. Then, if they do that as well, it throws the entire statistical modeling of those pieces of statistics we have there into jeopardy.
Okay. Now, before we take leave of you, we know that some countries in the world have reached their peak. Some of them have even started to go down. China being an example. Numbers, dwindling every day. Now, if we are to know how close or far we are from our peak, we're going to need to have certain data. Can you enumerate for us the data that the Ghana Health Service needs to give us so that we can properly calculate this?
We need to know our R number. Our current, our baseline, are nominal. Those we need to know, they are giving. Because we need to know how close to one they are tracking, which then means that when one person gets the infection, they can only pass it on to one person. That is one thing we need to know. We need to know what's called our doubling rate. The number of days or weeks it takes for our case count to double. For example, if I had 1,000 positive tests today, How long would it take for me to get 2,000? That is the other thing we need to know as a matter of urgency. And then finally, we need to know how our test to positive test ratios are tracking, because the curve will start dropping, like I said, when we test more and we get less. So those three things we need to be told. And I have reiterated this and said, unless and until I have those three numbers coming from officialdom, and I have them independently computed, and other people would independently compute, I wouldn't be able to agree with what I am being told, because it's like talking to me in the blind, and I don't want to be communicated to in the dark. I don't think Ghanaians deserve to be communicated to in the dark. We need to be communicated to in the light, and it's good for everybody. It's not just because we are vampires that want to suck blood out of the data. No, we are vampires that want to suck blood out of the data to prevent others from getting down the wrong road. Like I said, on this file, and I'll say it here again, this disease is teaching us, it's taking us on a tutorial in which there are no lecturers, there are no TAs, there are only students. When this disease started, it was said to be a respiratory disease. Now we know it's not a respiratory disease. It shuts down so many organs. It affects the blood, it affects the endothelium, it affects your clotting factors, it affects your kidneys. It causes multiple organs shut. We know that. It was said not to be transmitted airborne. Now we all wear masks. The point is that when it comes to the treatment and the vaccine, we are nowhere close. So it's in your own interest not to get infected, because if you get infected, you're only going to be used as a guinea pig to try the new treatment that would benefit humankind. I personally, even though I have volunteered to be a guinea pig, do not want any Ghanaian, unwittingly or unknowingly, to become a guinea pig simply because they didn't take their own security into their own hands. And that is where I'd want to leave it.
All right. So to sum up, we need the current, nominal, and baseline R numbers. We need the doubling rate, and then we need the test to positive test ratio. Now, with the last one, you mean daily, right?
Well, yes, we can have it daily, and we can have it, whatever it gives us, we can track it.
Right. Well, I must say that we actually did extend an invitation to the Ghana Health Service. We engaged them yesterday, gave them an idea of what we wanted them to come and talk to us about. They are yet to give us a response on whether they will participate in this conversation. But I want to thank you so much, Kwame Asiedu-Sapong, for your time with us this morning.
Thank you so much, as well, for having me.
Always a pleasure. So, well, there you go. Some very interesting analysis from Kwame Asiedu-Sapong there. The first and most important one is that probability that he's pointed out from the figures, that it is actually more likely for you to get infected randomly walking around than if you have been in contact with a known case. That should work wonders for the anti-stigma fight, but it also puts terror in our hearts, right?
But don't we need a little bit of terror, Kojo? And I think that it is. If terror is the truth of the situation, then the earlier we come to the recognition and acceptance that this is what it is, the better it is for us. And, listening to him talk about the fact that those who, for example, are selling on the streets, they're coming into contact with so many people, then they're going home, and then they're coming into contact with a lot of people, and then they're coming back, and so you're buying things from them. And, yesterday, the boss of the FDA, she said that we should treat everything as if it's contaminated. Mm-hmm. So that packet of plantain chips, you should treat it like it's contaminated. That bottle of water, like it's contaminated. It's so easy to just pick up a bottle of water from somebody selling it by the roadside, put it on your car seat and then rub your eyes because something went into your eyes. That's how easy it is, do you know what I mean, to actually get the virus if in fact it is contaminated. So I love the fact that there's a certain element of terror. I think it is necessary if we're really going to be able to get a handle of this. I don't know if I'm convinced about the whole peaking situation. From what Kwame has said, I'm erring more on his side, especially where he talks about the fact that he needs to see the figures, independent assessments, and the other thing is that we get information from the government. It's always a few days after, or it's a week after, it's a few days after. So it's never like really current information. And so they're asking us basically to really just trust that this is what you're saying without actually giving us the through and throughness. My word is not correct, I know, but it's for emphasis, information for us to be able to analyze. So he said we're kind of working on the blind side because we're not actually, privy to the exact information. So I would say, look, just treat everybody and everything like it is contaminated.
And you see, he gave a certain definition of the peak. And it makes sense mathematically. Your peak is when your number of recoveries are higher, your daily number of recoveries are higher than your daily number of infections.
Yeah.
So you see, the key word there is daily. You have to know the daily figures. And we currently don't. So how do we know that we're near the peak? You see, it brings me back to the definition, right? Definition of peak. I like this mathematical definition. But Winston, I know that last night you were looking into what it means to be at one's peak.
See, I'm going to take you into something before we even get into all of that.
All right.
And I have this article in front of me, which was written by Christian Brownlee, and it's on the John Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health website.
Right.
It's an article and it says dangerous curve predicting the coronavirus peak. So I just went for this because according to, Caitlin Rivers, who's a senior associate in the John Hopkins Center for Health Security and assistant professor in environmental health and engineering.
Right.
And this is a quote: "We usually don't know that we reached the peak until we are past it. And at this point, we don't know what the next day will bring." This is instructive. I'll take it again. We usually don't know that we've reached the peak until we are past it. And at this point, we don't know what the next day will bring. Why is she saying that? Because to reach your peak, you've talked about a very important mathematical analysis, that your number of recoveries should be more than your active cases. And so what that would mean is that your total active cases would be reducing because your recoveries are there.
And
so
they are increasing. Yeah.
Great. So having said that, let us look at a very important situation. Because if you go to Italy, for instance, and I'm just going to take you to, the Italian situation, because in the Italian situation, they're looking at how it affected them. Just last Thursday, they had over 400. They had about 400 deaths, which was a reduction. In fact, the largest reduction in their number of cases. So how is Italy treating it? Italy has decided, okay, so we've reached peak. We've seen the number of deaths declining, and the declining number of deaths, we've seen the largest decline of it. So my point is simple. You cannot be talking about reaching peak when you have not seen your highest rate of infection and begin to observe a decline. Even when you start observing a decline, you observe the decline, and after a number of days, there's the possibility of your cases rising again, like the Wuhan case, which we're talking about. So when your cases rise again, then you could probably say, okay, so you reached a peak, you are declining, and I think the cases are beginning to increase again. And so that would lead you to some further research being done. So my point is that let us not jump into we've reached our peak. Based on what Rivers has said, you only get to know you've reached your peak in many of the instances when you've passed it. And Boris Johnson, when he resumed from work, one of the first things he said is that the UK has passed its peak. And that is instructive. He said the UK has passed its peak because they're beginning to see a reduction in the number of active cases. They're beginning to see a reduction in the number of, deaths. Italy, when it started, saw a reduction. Their case, number of deaths, reduced to 25,006, and then the following day, and 3 days later, it increased again. And so they were cautious, and that is where, for instance, if you look at a story that was published on, SkyNews.com. They talked about how it could take them an additional 7 to 8 days. That was before they eventually peaked. Because they were cautious that, okay, so let us wait between 7 to 10 days to determine. In our situation, the problem is that we do not even know our daily infection rates. Maybe the Ghana Health Service knows, because according to Noguchi, they send reports to them daily. Daily, they send reports to them.
But you have to bear in mind that those reports coming from Noguchi are of a backlog.
Thank you.
In
fact, you've actually helped my analysis because according to Noguchi also, sometimes it takes them 3 days to get done with some of the
to clear a backlog.
To clear a backlog. Well, now we're told that there's no backlog, and so we're expecting that, all things being equal, when the case is coming, because the last time I spoke to Dr. Kofi Boni on Upfront, he told me that, look, the cases coming, and sometimes some are from routine surveillance, general surveillance, and the others are from the hospitals, and they treat the ones from the hospitals as urgent. So they would test those ones and send the reports to the Ghana Health Service. Those that were done through enhanced testing and all of that could wait, because with the hospital cases, there's a fear that a person would need to know his status and immediately move on. So that is there.
Right.
My point is, Dr. Bedusa Akodie talks about how we came by our analysis briefly. So he talks about the fact that, and this is it says the best way to assess the curve is by using the daily case incidence, which means the tracking of number of cases recorded per day to pick the trend. If you don't have that, the next line will be the date when the patients were first seen at the facility, and the next is the date the samples were taken. And he says they were using data from the date the samples were taken to monitor the trend. I'd have been much convinced if we were using the best. I'd have been much convinced.
But this is like the third best.
The third best. If we were using the best. And I'd be much convinced if we were being updated daily. And I would have been much convinced if our number of recoveries were more than a number of active cases. And so my point simply is,
you are not convinced.
I am not convinced.
Your point simply is, you are not convinced.
Not convinced. Well, look, it's important what you think. Okay, so later on the show, we'd love to hear from you. But right now, though, please tweet at us. Use the hashtag JoySMS. Tell us what you think now that you've heard all this analysis. Do you really think we're at our peak? Do you think we even have the information to make that declaration, as Dr. Bedusa Akodie did yesterday? So tweet at us, send us your WhatsApp messages to 0244 340 437. Now we've got a big conversation ahead of us, haven't we? This is a rough time for many reasons, particularly because of the massive impact it's had on certain industries and sectors. Okay, there are hotels right now that have no guests. There are big 5-star hotels that have less than 10 guests, and the reality here is the fact that people are losing their jobs.
Yeah.
If you haven't lost your job, you know somebody who has. I can almost guarantee it. But do we even have the statistics? Do we have the job loss numbers? Did we even have the employment numbers to begin with before COVID-19 came along? Do we know the impact of this thing on jobs? Do we know it? And what government is doing about it? Because government is doing something. Is it enough? Are we targeting it at the right people? How is it affecting you at home? What would make a difference to you as you wake up in the morning, you look at the faces of your wife, your children, your husband? You have no job because of COVID-19. You've been laid off, you've been put on furlough. You're not earning. And you're stuck at home. Yet somehow you and your family must survive. What's COVID-19 done to you? Whether it's you who's lost a job or somebody you know. This is the conversation we want to have when we come back from these all-important messages.
Mommy, I'm hungry.
Oh, Hema, today is Mommy's day off, so you can order anything you want.
Anything I want?
Anything. You can call me Dada Cash today.
Yay, pizza.
You crazy, making promises. Do you even have enough cash on you?
Honey, just watch and learn. Hello? I'd like to place an order for 2 large pizzas and 2 large drinks.
Sure, sir. You can pay cash on delivery.
Oh, forget the cash. I'll be paying with CowPay. It's quicker and faster.
Pay for anything online and take control of all your payment transactions with CowPay on the CowBank app. Visit the Play Store or the App Store and download the